I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby here with Daysha Broadway, Stephanie Filo, and Jessica Hernandez, who were all nominated for an Emmy this year as part of the editing team for A Black Lady Sketch Show. So before we talk about the show and your work, I'd love to know from each of you what that nomination day was like for you. We'll start with Daysha.
I have a terrible memory, so I forgot that the announcements were happening. And I hadn't listened or watched or done anything, and I was driving into work, and I got a call. I got some text messages, and I thought people were congratulating me for the show being nominated. And I was like, oh, that's great, but I was also driving, so I just couldn't pay attention. But Robin Thede and Lauren Ashley Smith called me screaming about it. And I was like, yeah, congrats guys. Like, and they were like, no, you guys got nominated. The team, like the editing team got nominated. And so I like freezed and freaked out and was just completely overwhelmed with joy. Cause I think it's been, I was on season 1 and season 2. And for me, it's been like a gratifying moment because I think it means that people are paying attention to how great the show is.
Yeah, they certainly are. Stephanie, what was it like for you?
So it was super early in the morning and I was like drinking coffee and still waking up and my phone started blowing up. And I was just like, I assumed it was like my sister because she's on a different time zone. And I was like, I'll call her back later after I'm like awake. And then I looked at my phone, saw like a congratulations message, and then my boyfriend simultaneously also got nominated for editing on Top Chef. And I think we both kind of figured out at the exact same time and like screamed and we're just, celebrating from the couch at 8 a.m. But yeah, it was an amazing, amazing moment.
Nice. An Emmy nominated couple. Love it. And Jessica, what about for you?
Mine was a little similar to Daysha's in that I was driving to work and had forgotten that it was the day the nominations were coming out. And my phone started going off, but more so than normal. And I did keep pulling over to check the text. And it took me like an hour and a half to get to work because I kept pulling over to respond, because I was super excited. But yeah, I finally got to work. I ended up crashing my car the same day. So I feel like I was definitely like a little off, but in a good way,
Not related though, right? That wasn't related.
Not related. No, it would be an awesome story had I been like, oh my God, and crashed. But I do feel like I must have been out of it a little bit to crash later.
Yeah, that is a very up and down day, I must say.
Yeah.
But, well, so Daysha, you are the supervising editor on the show, and you're responsible for the overall tone of the show, from what I understand. But this is a true variety show in the sense that there's so many different styles of comedy. You have darker sketches that are just kind of goofy. Plus you have this ongoing, serialized narrative that's running through the season with the end of the world event. So how do you keep all of those tones feeling consistent?
It's a little difficult, I'm not gonna lie, because it's I think all of us sort of approached each sketch based on its genre, which, like you said, was different from sketch to sketch. And then I think, the sketches, we cut them completely separately outside of the episode. We don't know which episode they're going to go into until, the shooting is done and Robin and Lauren sort of put like, okay, episode 1 is this, episode 2 is this. And then that's when it becomes about, okay, we need to make sure the episode sort of feels cohesive and not necessarily like 3 different people cut it, and the tone matches sort of like what the vibe that season 1 was giving and what Robin and Lauren sort of wanted for the show. And it's very much just about knowing the characters. I think that the characters that are written, we had some reoccurring characters from season 1 that are in season 2, and as long as they sort of play and feel the same and feel true to that character, I think like the tone of that sketch, like it'll still feel natural and it'll feel sort of correct and like what it should be. But Jessica and Stephanie brought their own style and creativity to each sketch. And so it was also important for me to make sure that stayed in the sketch as much as possible.
Hmm. And yeah, for Stephanie and Jessica, I believe you both joined for season 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So from each of you, what were the challenges for you in terms of, editing for comedy and just the specific rhythms of this show? Stephanie.
I think something that's interesting about this show, if you look at like a live sketch show, there's pausing for laughs and stuff like that. And it's interesting in this show, if you watch it, how fast paced it is. It's very like joke upon joke upon joke. So just kind of figuring out that, I guess that style, but also we're basically cutting like 45 different sketches per season. Each one is a completely different style and genre, like Daysha was saying. And I think that actually speaks more to our strengths as a team, because we've all had such very different backgrounds that it's like we're able to bring different tool sets to the edit with us.
And Jessica?
I would go along the lines of what Stephanie said. There was a lot of toolkits that we've got and we're able to kind of bring to it. And I think the challenge, of course, is to, like, when you're coming into a second season, is understanding what the showrunners want, what they already have conceptualized, and making sure that you fit into that. So I would study any sketches that I grabbed that in season 2 that were recurring from season 1. I definitely would check them out and study and make sure that my tone was matching what the original had, so it had that sort of inherent quality carried over. But I would say that was the biggest challenge, was that. And but the toolkit stuff, I think having these 45 different kind of short films, like, it just allows you to play around all the time and constantly have these new ideas for how you're going to cut something. Like, it's not an episode where the whole thing has a specific tone.
Right. Yeah. Well, the episode you submitted, I want to talk about this, that you're nominated for Sister May I Call You Oshun, which for those who don't remember is the episode where Dr. Hadassah and Gabrielle Union is there. Jesse Williams also in that episode. There's this scene that's in biblical times. A very memorable episode. I don't know if you chose that episode to submit or if it was producers or the network, but what made that episode stand out for you, Daysha?
I think we definitely chose that episode. I think it was mentioned, and we were like, yeah, it's sort of the episode that does not stop coming. Like, it's just hit after hit after hit. And I think all the sketches in that episode are packed with jokes. I really liked the one with Jesse Williams because it was completely different than any other sketch I think we did in the season. It's like got this sort of film noir vibe, and Jessica can talk more to that because she cut the sketch. But I thought also the episode was, every sketch was so different from the last that you watch. You have the talk show, you have this insane gender reveal in a backyard, you have this film noir situation, you have the biblical scene and the Last Supper. It's crazy. And I was like, I know with the sketches that I cut, it was very improv laden. Like, we definitely tried to pack in as many jokes as were shot on set as possible, whether they were scripted or not. And I think because of that, each sketch just feels like joke. I think more so than some of the other episodes. And yeah, there's just not a miss in the episode. It's one of our best for sure.
Yeah, I think we were all kind of like thinking about what our favorite sketches were and what we would submit. And we're like, this episode has everything. Mm-hmm. But it's all the ones that we keep mentioning. So
yeah.
Yeah, Jessica, did you want to add anything about the more film noir-ish?
That one was super fun. It was called Living on the Edges. And to Daysha's point, yeah, we just packed it with every single improv that we could find. And there was Jesse Williams came with some really funny stuff. And the sketches came together beautifully. And yeah, again, it was fun to do this genre piece of film noir.
Yeah. Well, there's a few sketches in this episode that seem like more of a challenge than others. I mean, the bigger group sketches, the gender reveal party, the biblical sketch. What would you say is sort of the key to making those kinds of sketches have a focused energy and not feel too all over the place in terms of the focus of the sketch? We'll go to Stephanie.
Well, so I cut The Last Supper, which is in this episode, and I think that one, just speaking to that, it's very, very improv heavy. It's maybe like 40% improv, and I think we just kind of peppered in as much as possible. And then when I was sitting with Lauren and Robin in our notes sessions, we would just kind of like look through the improv, pepper in as much as we could, and it was at one point like twice the length that it is now. So it's just it's kind of like figuring out what that like ebb and flow is and what the balance is to make it the right length and as punchy as possible. So it's kind of just trying a lot of different things and seeing what works.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most fun parts of every episode is just seeing the outtakes and the bloopers at the end, and it feels like there's just this wealth of material that isn't able to make it into the episode. For Jessica, can you talk about sorting through all of that different footage and just how much footage there is? Like, is that a typical thing that it's like double the length of what you would fit into the sketch?
Oftentimes, yeah, they really especially like after the first round, like the second, because they shot it in 2 pieces. And I feel like the second round, they really went for it with the improv. And there was just so much, which it's sort of like an embarrassment of riches when you can play with and decide like, well, what is the absolute best jokes to go in? And then we still had some that we adored and they end up in the outtakes, like, so we do try to make sure that they're seen somehow because they're just so there's like little golden nuggets everywhere. But yeah, I find that like, that's the case is like, and that's not usual, like for, I guess, a regular show. Comedy shows generally, I think that there is more improv to deal with, and then how to use that in what the script had originally had. But again, sketches is a little different. So it allows you to a little more freedom with that.
Just speaking to the show itself and this great cast, Daysha, I hope you could speak to the strengths of Robin Thede and Ashley Nicole Black and Gabrielle Dennis specifically, having been there since the beginning, because they do a variety of different kinds of sketches. But what would you say are just the main strengths of the 3 of them as performers that you've just picked up on?
Well, Ashley Nicole Black is my muse. She is who I go to when I need a reaction shot that is silent and is just facial. She's usually who I go to because she usually is thinking what I'm thinking in the moment. And so I'll grab from her. I think the first thing I ever cut with her was the first Invisible Spy. And I was like, oh, a lot of her comedy is in what she's not saying. And then this season, she is the best for giving you just a run of improv dialogue to end your sketch like that. She's the best for like buttoning the sketch for sure. Robin and one of our new cast members, Sky Townsend, completely lose themselves in the characters that they play. Robin as Chris, the first season, is unrecognizable, and this season I feel like just owned that character so much. There's a character in Rude Poisoning, which is in our finale, that Sky plays, that I did not know was her at first. I didn't know she was playing. Maybe she plays a guy, but she just completely becomes the character. And I think Robin and Sky are very good for that. I think Gabrielle Dennis was amazing this season, like so much so. I think that because of COVID restrictions, I think some of our sketches had to be rewritten. And I think the physical comedy that Gabrielle and Lacey brought this season was like above and beyond what we saw last season. I think Gabrielle definitely loses herself in characters as well, but her physical humor is like what you remember from sketches, I think, like especially like Courtroom Kiki, the twerking and the backflipping, and when she's like crip walking in the gang retreat, like just her whole mannerisms and the physicality. I think she used to be a dancer, and so she's very like nimble and can do like all these moves that she just, again, it's just improv and she just decides to do it. And I think that, yeah, because of that, they all bring something very like different that we can work with.
Yeah. They're all very versatile. I love it.
Very,
Yeah. I was also just curious about the order of sketches because, you know, you do have the end of the world storyline, but the other sketches aren't necessarily connected otherwise. We can go to Stephanie here, just in terms of what the decision-making process is behind assembling the order of sketches, if there is already one from scripts, or just how you figure out the flow of an episode.
So basically the interstitial moments, I think, are always kind of decided ahead of time, but we pretty much go through cutting each sketch and going through all of our notes passes on each sketch before the episodes get assembled. I don't know the exact decision-making process because I think it has to do more with like which styles are in each episode, which characters are in each episode, and how to spread those across 6. And, you know, it comes down to also the running time. So sometimes, you know, a sketch might be way too long or way too short for an episode. So you end up moving it back and forth between just to get the perfect balance.
Gotcha. Well, just as we wrap up here, from what I understand, you are the first women of color editing team to be nominated for an Emmy. And Robin Thede has really emphasized the importance of, you know, not only centering Black women in front of the camera, but also having the diversity behind the scenes too. And I'll ask this of all three of you. What is the creative environment and the collaboration for you to be working on this show that is really valuing these different perspectives compared to maybe other shows or projects that you may have worked on? Whoever wants to start.
I mean, I think, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Steph.
I was gonna say Post in general is just a very male-centric and white male-centric field, I think, for the most part. And so, you know, I've never been on a team that's like all women ever. It's really just a totally different, amazing experience. And then to share it with women of color, this recognition as well is just such an amazing feat, I think, because you know, we all have our own different perspectives, but I think coming into a series that's very centered around, you know, Black women's voices, you know, it's nice to have people who have that kind of frame of reference when you're entering a scene. It's like, you know, a scene in season 1 that you guys did, Daysha, had Patti LaBelle in it. And it's like, I don't, you know, we don't have to explain to like a white editor maybe who doesn't know who Patti LaBelle is, you know, what that scene is. So I think it's just, you know, it's interesting seeing how many different perspectives we can all bring. And, you know, we have a specific lens that works well in this kind of a show.
What about for you, Jessica?
Sorry, I lost my earpiece. It's back. Sorry.
Okay.
So for me, it's very similar. I think that it's an honor to be nominated with 2 really talented women, period, and to have it be for such a quality piece of show. But on top of it, it is nice that, like, I hope people see this and also think this is an opportunity, like this is a job that I could do versus this whole, like, I mean, it's true, like even now where I'm editing, it's a much more mixed environment than it ever used to be. I mean, I've been editing for like 15 years and it was like all male and me, and all white male usually and me. And to see it sort of change and evolve into, like, you can have an all-female team. Not only the editors, but our assistants were also women. So it was actually the entire post department was women. So from the producer on down. So it was a really unique experience, and I hope there's more of it.
Yeah.
And Daysha?
Yeah, I think I agree with Jessica. Like, just the visibility of it is important to me. I think just, you know, seeing the 3 of us listed in the nominations and being talked about and part of the conversation, I think is going to be important for you know, female editors that come behind us, especially female editors of color who yeah, like might have thought that this was something they wanted to do, but probably not totally possible. You know, it definitely is possible, and it's possible to work with people that look like you, but also have completely different backgrounds than you, different experiences and perspectives that they can bring to the table. I think as far as the environment, working on the show, there are a lot of things that aren't said because we don't need to say them. It's just there's I think a comfortability that's like already there. We sort of understand things about each other. And so we don't necessarily need to break down everything in every step. So that makes things, I think, a little bit easier and a little bit more collaborative without, too much questioning. I think we can just say, hey, I have an idea for this and not have to worry too much about that. But yeah, I appreciated seeing so many hardworking, talented women and non-binary people on our show with the same goal in mind, just to make something that's great. And I think that, yeah, hopefully, seeing something like this sort of moves the needle in the industry a little bit more.
Yeah, I hope so. And congrats again on this nomination. Hope it's the first of many. But for those of you watching, subscribe for more interviews and head to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions. Daysha, Stephanie, Jessica, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.